Thank you for being with us. A legislative study of the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs began this week, with state lawmakers being drawn a disturbing picture. It shows an agency drenched in secrecy, in charge of hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, entrusted with the lives of hundreds of veterans, and with little or no oversight. The hearing also produced indications change has already begun at the agency.
Following allegations of abuse, neglect, rapes, wrongful deaths, and high-level resignations, a state Senate panel has begun its own examination of the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs. Senator Steve Russell, chairman of the Senate Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, says it is time to change the attitude within the agency and at its 7 veteran centers. He says they are not places where old veterans go to die.
And we have to reject that notion. And that has been a goal of mine for the last 4 years, is that we reject the notion that we roll out the veterans for the photo op, for the political campaign promises, and then, when they're in their final moments, we give them a bed and then they die.
Committee Vice Chairman Senator Frank Simpson asked for the examination of operations at the ODVA and the Veterans Centers after a series of reports by OETA that showed a pattern of abuse and neglect.
The catalyst for this study, of course, was the stories of neglect and abuse that surfaced at the centers. We've all seen and heard those stories surrounding those allegations. We're also aware of the recent tragic death of a resident at the Claremore Center.
Secretary of Military and Veteran Affairs Rita Aragon told the panel that under previous leadership of the ODVA and War Veterans Commission, she was kept out of meetings and told she had no authority and so no need to be involved. Aragon says even the governor was kept in the dark. The case that has drawn the most attention is the death of Jay Minter. According to the medical examiner, Minter died from complications due to thermal injuries. Multiple investigations showed Minter was scalded to death in a whirlpool bath at the Claremore Veterans Center in May.
One of the members of the press contacted me and asked if I was aware of it, and I said no and asked details about it. That person had a great deal of information about the background and history of it. That's how I actually found out about it, and then I reported it to the governor.
Investigations by DHS and the ODVA showed that Claremore Veterans Center personnel misled the state medical examiner about what happened to Mr. Minter. Secretary Aragon says she, too, was misled.
The information I was given from the director is that it was a tragic death, but that there had been no culpability. They were, the family was happy with the results, and that was the story that I was given at the time. That, in other words, that the death of Mr. Minter was a result of his age.
As a new War Veterans Commission plans for a total reorganization of the agency, Secretary Aragon says there are lingering questions about just how many veterans have suffered while in the state centers.
We have 7 wrongful death suits sitting right now. I wonder daily and nightly, I look at how many of those have actually occurred in the past when no one was watching. And I have to say, we really owe the fact that someone was watching to our press. They were the ones who dug into it and got background information and exposed it.
Aragon says there are people across the state wondering about their loved ones who died in the veterans centers, and no one raised a question about what really happened to them.
I have people call me from all of the different veterans' homes and saying, my dad died, he loved being there, but I know that he wasn't at death's door, and I don't know what happened.
John McReynolds is now the interim executive director of the ODVA. He told the panel he was heading to the Claremore facility where Mr. Minter died, and other allegations of abuse and neglect have originated.
Troubleshoot that chain of command right all the way down to where that problem occurred. I'll be in Claremore Friday if anybody wants to come along. It may not be pretty, but I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want to get some answers from some people that were there.
Other changes are already underway at the Veterans Agency. The new chairman of the War Veterans Commission says they are determined to make improvements at ODVA.
One of the first things that we have been tasked to do is to replace the leadership in ODVA.
Chairman Rich Putnam says one of the new commission's biggest challenges is to prove it can conduct proper oversight of the agency and win back the trust that has been lost. One of the other new members of the War Veterans Commission, Robert Keister, told the panel he and 2 other new commissioners have been making unannounced visits to the centers and spending time talking to staff.
We had contact with some that were disgruntled, and we also had some contact with staff that are loving their job, and some of them that were fixing to retire because of some of the problems that they were encountering at their facility. And we told them, says, now, we're just new, and we want to try to get this thing corrected.
The Senate task force plans several meetings over the next few months to examine in detail the management structure of the agency and oversight. Members will look at the individual centers, their management, staffing, and compensation rates. The task force will focus on patient care to eliminate abuse and neglect and put an end to the growing number of wrongful death lawsuits. The state already appears to be taking a different approach also. For years, the Attorney General's office did not respond to tort claims filed against the state charging abuse or wrongful death and would battle the lawsuits that followed, sometimes for years. In the death of Jay Minter, the state has offered to settle the family's tort claim for the full amount allowed under the law, $175,000, without going to court. Secretary Aragon says many people who lived in the veterans centers received good care.
But to see one of our older veterans who dies unnecessarily because they were entrusted to us and we weren't able to help them through whatever issue they had, I think is a harsh criticism on all of us that are connected and touch those homes.
The next meeting of the Senate Task Force on Veterans Affairs is scheduled for September 27th. Senator Simpson says he is willing to hear from anyone who has information that will help improve the veterans centers and bring real and lasting change to the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs.